Hello and welcome officially to everyone online. I am Jillian Henry, and I'm the Vice President of Engagement for the Purdue for Life Foundation. And it is a privilege to be on here, helping to hear from some of our incredible volunteer chapter leaders across the U.S. with Purdue Women's Network. Before we get started, I just want to remind everybody to tell us who you are and where you are from in the chat today. So if you haven't had a chance to do that, please do so. And then also for our Zoom etiquette tonight, we ask that everybody to please mute their camera, or not their camera, mute their microphone. You can keep your camera on because we love to see your faces. And then if you've got any questions, please utilize the chat. So Stephanie is going to be monitoring our chat tonight and telling us when we have questions, which I know we will have several. So we will have some dedicated time for questions at the end. But if you have some specific questions for each of these chapter leaders, you can go ahead and drop those in the chat as well. So before I introduce these incredible volunteers, I do want to call out a few signature events that we've got coming up, which is so exciting. We have a Purdue Women's Network travel opportunity for you. So this is actually the second that we've done. The first one we had in Italy last fall. It was amazing. You're going to hear a little bit more about that experience tonight from one of our chapter leaders, and I'll chime in on that too. I had the opportunity to host that with Maria, but we have another one coming up, and we decided to have this one over a Memorial Day weekend to allow working women, many of our women are still working, have a little bit of extra vacation time for that date. And this is going to be a very special one in Provence. This is a river cruise, and we are going to be exploring the culinary amazing delicacies of Provence, France. So we still have a few openings on that trip. It is coming up. It's May 28th through June 6th. So if you've got questions about that, you can email me directly. You can put those into the chat and I'd be happy to respond to you directly. And then you saw a little bit about a reel for last year's women's conference. That was very special. That was the first time we've ever had the Purdue Women's Conference on campus. So many of you who've been around for a long time know that we started that back in 2018, and our first conference was in Chicago. And then we went online because, of course, the pandemic. So our next conference was online, and then we went to Indianapolis. We had a fantastic conference there. And then last year was the first time that we have been on campus. And it was so successful, we decided we know women love coming back to campus. And if you haven't had a chance to come back to campus in a long time, I would highly encourage you to sign up for this year's women's conference. It is June 17th and 18th, and registration is right around the corner. It's opening this Friday. So 2 days from today, registration is going to open, and we chose that day intentionally because it is the International Day of Women. So please go ahead and think about registering. That is a 2-day conference. It is very low priced. I mean, if you're in the corporate world, you know that it is a lot to go to conferences. I think we're sitting at about $250 to $300 on a registration, depending if you're a member in the Purdue Alumni Association or President's Council or John Purdue Club. If you're a member in any of those, you get a discount for coming too. So please check that out. If you're not sure where to check that out, hang in till the end. I'm going to do some screenshots and show you how to navigate to some of our amazing events that we put on. So I think that kind of wraps up some of the things that we're doing, but I did want to give a shout out and a preview for Cocktails and Conversation next month. Many of you who see our Cocktails and Conversations know I am not the one that is usually leading these. It is our fantastic leader, Maria Whipple, who is hosting a trip for us right now. So in addition to our Women's Network travel opportunities, we put on about 50 other alumni travel trips a year. And so we take turns sending our staff to host some of those trips. So right now, Maria is somewhere in the Caribbean. I know, lucky to be her. But we are here all over the U.S. too, so represent. Hopefully she'll see this and be proud of us as well. But she is engaging some amazing Boilermakers on that trip. So if you're watching, Maria, we salute you, and have a nice umbrella drink for all of us here at Cocktails and Conversations. Next month, we have a Cocktails and Conversations that is going to talk about ChatGPT. So if you're interested in all things AI, this would be a great cocktails and conversations to watch. You can hear from some of our alumni and professors that are going to be doing that. Maggie Riesdorf, Lindsay Ham, and Yang Kong are going to all discuss ChatGPT, which is really incredible if you've never tried it. I'd like to move on now to have more people talking because you are here to hear some of the amazing things that our volunteer leaders are doing with our Purdue Women's Network chapter. So it is my sincere pleasure to introduce some of our panelists for this evening. The first one from our Chicago chapter, Elenia Herrera Lutz. She is a Purdue alum. She is currently the Global Director of Talent Acquisition with a company that is globally located. And she also finds time to help lead the chapter there in Chicago for Purdue Women's Network. Elenia, welcome. We also have from Indianapolis a chapter leader, Brianna Davis, an alum, a lawyer that is located in Indianapolis who also finds time to help lead our Indianapolis chapter. Bree, welcome.
Thank you.
From Washington, D.C., we have Sharon James, also an alum. She is a user experience engineer, and Sharon has also traveled on our very first Purdue Women's Network trip with some of her roommates from Purdue, so you'll hear some things about that. Welcome, Sharon from DC. And finally, our newest chapter leader, we have Lisa Bracker, who helped to start the very first chapter there in Michigan. Lisa Bracker joining us, retired engineer, but also found time to start this chapter there in Michigan. Welcome, Lisa. All right, so the first thing I want to ask these ladies, and Stephanie is going to help us so that you can see who is who, because I want you to place a face with the name of some of these amazing volunteers. So we're going to start, and I'll kind of call out who is who. We're going to start with Elenia. Elenia, tell us what inspired you to become one of our volunteer leaders with Purdue Women's Network. And you can go back to the beginning, because if you don't know, Elenia was one of the leaders who helped us to start the International Council of Purdue Women, which is a precursor of Purdue Women's Network. So, Elenia, what inspired you to get involved with Purdue Women's Network, or what was ICPW? What stood out, what resonated, and what made you say, hey, choose me, I'll go in?
Well, I would say it's actually FOMO. Seeing how many people through the years have been having fun, the connections they forge, and when you go back to campus or you get together with alumni, I wanted to have the same thing. At the same time, as a kid growing up in Panama and having Purdue grads in my family, I would hear about them going to tailgates and games and things like that. So I really wanted to have that experience for myself. And just looking at the connections people forge, I feel in a lot of chapters, obviously if you invest, right, then, that kind of pays it forward in other ways. But I see the lifelong friendships that people make. And obviously we're joined by our pride for and gratitude for Purdue education. But also we have a lot of fun, right? We go to the Boilermaker Ball, we go to Purdue game watches, and it's fun to introduce people to this opportunity. I think as a student, you don't see that as much. And maybe the alumni sort of association is not as something as present. So I kind of like to change that. And we're very active on social media, and we try to showcase what we do. So other Purdue grads, even if you don't have friends, or close people, right? Because oftentimes we have people from all sorts of, graduation years, different schools. So maybe, some of the people where you live, are not able to attend. So I really would like to extend that bridge, right? And that opportunity for other people to reconnect with the Boilermaker family. And it's very rewarding. It's very fun when you see these relationships be forged.
Yeah, there's always a connection there. I mean, you automatically have something in common. And that's special too, because the chapter in Chicago was the first chapter that we started. That's really kind of where the impetus came from, is there were so many women in Chicago saying, I want to do something. I want something to be for Purdue women. How can we make this happen? And so thank you, Eleni, for helping us get that off the ground there. it's still a very active chapter. So thank you. Bree, let's hear from you. What's going on in Indianapolis? But before you tell us that, I want to know what's going on with you. What made you interested in getting involved and starting this Indianapolis chapter?
It was guilt. I'll tell you why. So I was very involved in Purdue. I was a Purdue athlete. Met my husband at Purdue. He's a Purdue athlete, both NCAA All-Americans. But after I graduated, I went to IU for law school. Purdue does not have a law school, so it was 3 years of red and white. And then after I graduated from law school, I was like, man, I'm missing something. I want to connect back to where I felt like home. So I reached out after I got into my practice, and it was like 4 years into practicing law. And I just reached out and learned about the International Council of Purdue Women. That's what it was called at the time. And there was an opening. They're like, you should, we're starting something in Indy. We started in Chicago. What do you think? And I'm like, that's my speed. Let's go. So it's been, I think 2019 is when we started. Had a huge kickoff, a great turnout, and then we got shut down immediately because of COVID. So revved back up, and we're doing great things in Indianapolis. We have a full new board. I'm the chapter leader. My co-chair is Nina. She also works for the Purdue for Life Foundation. She's wonderful. And then Margaret. And Margaret and I are both, I want to say new moms, but I have a 1 and 2 year old, and she just had her third baby. So we're busy over here, but in love with the college, in love with connecting with like women, and just doing fun things around Indianapolis.
Wonderful.
Jillian?
Thanks so much for sharing, Bree.
Jillian,
Sharon,
I'm sorry to
let's hear
interrupt.
from you. Let's find out how you decided to get involved in Purdue Women's Network, and specifically the chapter there in DC.
Okay. Well, years ago, we tried to kick off the International Council for Purdue Women, and then Purdue Women's Network formed, and that's when it kind of got shut down. Years passed, and then I joined as board of directors for the Purdue Black Alumni. I did my 3-year term, and I just still wanted to keep connected, but doing something different. And then the Boilers Go to DC came up. So I volunteered to help with that. And that's when I kind of took on being the lead of the Purdue Women's Network. So this is our 2nd year involved with helping support the students that come here. They need a community service project in their middle weekend. So I took the lead to put together a food prep at the DC Central Kitchen. So a team of us went over there, all the students, it's about 20 students that join. And then I try to get some of the alumni in the area to also come and meet with them. And they also bring their mentors that they've been mentoring with that are in the DC area will come and join them. So after our event, we will have lunch together with the students. So I'm in the midst of planning that now. And I've been introduced to 2 new graduates that have moved to the DC area that want to get involved. So I'm in the process of getting to know them. And I see a young lady out here now, Heather Newland. I saw her, she said she was from Virginia. I was like, oh, let me get her name. So we're a fairly, I would say, new chapter. There are women out there that were involved, and I'm asking, please come back, because we're trying to get a lot of momentum going and get together and do some great things. So that's how I got it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sharon. And I'm hearing kind of a theme too. People were involved in maybe some different ways, but then there was something about this mission behind Purdue Women's Network that really spoke to you to take that next step into doing things. And I think we're going to hear something similar from Lisa. So Lisa, can you share us a little bit about your journey into creating a chapter there in Michigan? You were very, very active with the Alumni Club as well, but you saw a need to have a Purdue Women's Network chapter. Can you tell us a little bit about how that passion spoke to you and why you were interested in starting that first chapter there?
It all started when I was mentoring back in the civil engineering department at Purdue. And I realized that there was such a large percentage of women in civil engineering. And I thought it was really interesting. I thought, I'm not connecting with any in this particular area, region of Michigan. So I was becoming very active in the local club here in Southeast Michigan. And I was a president of that for a year and a half, 2 years. And the common theme that I kept hearing from the new students, the older, the older ladies in between and everything is, we really don't do much for women. And I was at the event that we had put together for Puabi Pottery. And one of the ladies said, I've been wanting to do this for decades. And I thought, we're not doing enough for women. We're not bringing women together to actually network and talk and have fun and do activities that they like. And Detroit is such a rich area of so many different activities that we could be doing. And then I started researching, what do you do to get the network up and running? How do you locate it? How do you capture the largest number of women within Southeast Michigan? That's where we landed on Ann Arbor. You get the 50-mile radius. And as I was meeting young women through the local club, I was taking note of who was interested and wanted the opportunities to build their skills, to take leadership roles, and weren't afraid to try new things. And that's basically how it started, was just individuals voicing that they had a gap, they wanted to do something fun, they needed to gather together. And I took it a little further thinking, okay, what does the future look like? Would we want a club in Traverse City? Would we want a club out in Kalamazoo? How do you strategically start making that happen? So
That's great. Thank you so much, Lisa. We are also joined by another leader, so I'll give you a chance to highlight there. Thanks, Stephanie. So I also want to introduce you to Miranda McKee, and she is one of our network leaders in Houston. Welcome, Miranda.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about how you decided to get involved. What made you raise your hand and say, yes, I'll help lead the Purdue Women's Network chapter for Houston?
So many years ago, when I moved to Houston, I did not really know many people when I came down here from Michigan. And it's about a year and a half, 2 years after graduation, and I connected through different sports events. Like I think Purdue was playing U of H basketball at one time. There were a couple other gatherings. And I was just like, this is great. Then life happens and so on. And then and I got connected to individuals through work, but I lost connection with the greater Houston group. And so around COVID, fast forward, and there was an outreach from Maria Whipple to kind of get the Houston chapter going. And we all met via Zoom. And it was just a lot of great energy. And Diana Overman, she was on the call, and Hillary. And we just had some great ideas to get together and realize that there was this really need of course, a connection. So we had a brunch to get some women together, and just being able to connect from all the different generations, it really inspired me, and trying to make sure that I found a different connection. At that point, during, post-COVID, we were all kind of like, no one's schedule was very busy because we had all taken a step back and trying to be more intentional. So over the last couple of years, we've been trying to put some life into the Houston network, just because Houston, I don't know if you know it, it's kind of like Chicago, but yet we don't have mass transit, and people are spread out all over. So we've really been trying to figure out, how do we get people to come together in the midst of their day-to-day. And we are still trying to find that connection, find those gimmies that will bring them together besides sporting events. But I want to be able to help and connect with like recent grads or incoming students. Selfishly, like I have a senior in high school. He's not going to go to Purdue, but he's got a couple friends that are, and I'm very excited about being able to make those connections for them. And I'm hoping that in the coming years that we do more in Houston to go back to having on-campus recruiting, local alumni help sit in on those recruiting events. So it's just multifaceted, but just a fun way to kind of connect, meet people from different years of Purdue. Like Diane and I, come find out, we were in the same sorority and degree. I mean, like, so many commonalities, but yet we never would have met had it been not been for the Women's Network.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Miranda. And I would be remiss if I didn't do a few shout outs to the folks that are not our speakers tonight, but really did have a lot of formation in getting either the local chapter started, Women for Purdue started, International Council of Purdue Women, and then now what is Purdue Women's Network. I know many of you on the call helped to do that, so thank you. It's a great segue really into sharing that when we decide to start a new chapter, it is really not us as staff who make that decision. It is the passion of volunteers. When we have passionate women come to us and say, I really want to start a chapter. I have volunteers. I have a group of women. I have ideas. I mean, there's obviously steps that we walk you through, but it is truly the passion and the desire and the commitment from our women who want to do this is what makes us start a new chapter. Lisa, for example, had brought this to us a few times, and she was so passionate. You just can't say no, right? You see this passion and you see that women are wanting to get together, and that's really the energy that drives a new chapter being born. So there are a couple of chapters that are not represented here tonight just for some conflicts, but we also have a chapter in Tippecanoe County that is Lafayette, West Lafayette, Greater Lafayette, as we call it here, but it's the Tippecanoe County chapter. And then we also have a chapter in San Francisco. So they weren't able to be with us tonight. But I know that there are going to be questions about what does it take to do that. So if you have questions about that, we can go through that towards the end. But I will just remind everybody that there are 3 tenets really to having a Purdue Women's Network chapter. Engagement is number 1. We want to make sure that you're connecting alumni to alumni or fan to fan, alumni to fan. And I say that because we have a lot of Purdue women who might not be an alumni, but they love Purdue. They might be part of a Purdue family broader. They might be a big Purdue fan. They might be a friend to Purdue. All are welcome. That's what we want to get out there. And so that means there's also volunteer leadership opportunities for other women. So engagement is number 1, and connecting all of these Purdue women back to the university. Number 2 is mentorship. We really strongly believe in pouring into the next generation of Purdue women. And so we have mentorship opportunities. We have many that are starting. Alenia is going to talk a little bit about one that they're doing in Chicago right now. But giving that back to the next generation and being a mentor to young women is so critical to our work. All of us, I'm sure, can think about women who poured into our lives, and we want to make sure that we're doing that for the next generation too. And then thirdly is philanthropy. We want to make sure that we are endowing a scholarship for a woman in every single one of our 10 colleges. And if you were in Naples with us, I'm not sure if any of you were, but we were able to secure and finally fund fully our general scholarship. And many of you were a part of that because, as you know, when you sign up for Cocktails and Conversations, you have an opportunity to give a donation of any amount. And that donation of any amount goes towards that $100,000 for the general fund. That is now fully funded. And so now we are able to give a scholarship out, and it is from the power of the women that are involved in Purdue Women's Network. So exciting there, but philanthropy is the third prong behind this. So all of our chapters help in those ways. And then things like this, the Cocktails and Conversations, the conference that we put on, we point to those 3 pillars for Purdue Women's Network. So a little bit about the chapters and why we do what we do. But I think it's time for the next question. So I'm going to give another question out to our chapter leaders. What are some upcoming events that you're currently working on that excite you? And or what are some things that you've done in the past that have been really successful? We'll go around for each of the chapter leaders again. So Alenia, we'll start with you.
Yes, I am most excited about our mentee event, and it's obviously a play on mentorship and tea time. And I think we can all recognize the impact that mentors, right, have in guidance and our career growth, and, the importance of if you've been mentor, right, especially you want to pay it forward. So this is going to be a fun event to connect. We are hosting it at a women's coffee shop in the Chicago suburbs, kind of speaking to Miranda's point, right? We try to have some things in the suburbs and some things in the city because Chicago is a large city. And with the playfulness of men tea, we are hosting tea time, and it's Kentucky Derby weekend. So people can bring their hats, their fascinators, and all that. We have had a lot of success with and I want to give credit to my co-lead Almira Sugar Ilana, which many of you, the Spice and Sugar duo, who are really devoted Purdue alums, and we like to have kind of add a touch of fun in some of the things that we do. And as I was saying, we have had a lot of success in events where people get to dress up or choose a theme, but we also have had a lot of success with other events. I think Bria and I was earlier we're talking about we're making something, so a wreath event that Carrie Wasak plans every year is very successful in terms of philanthropy. Recently, we partnered with one of the Game Watches, and Jennifer Esposito did a Chicago Dress for Success donation drive. So we try to focus on all the pillars, but figure out what are the things that people like. We also, because Chicago has 2 alumni chapters, we like to collaborate with them. So sometimes we participate in events with them, either the Chicago chapter or the Northwest Chicago suburb chapter. So
fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing. Bree, what have we got going on in Indianapolis, and what are some things that you've done in Indianapolis to engage?
Yeah, so when we started, our event kind of surrounded speaking. A lot of speaking events encouraging leaders. And after COVID, we polled our membership and they said, we just want to have fun. We want to get together, do stuff, and have fun. So our events are surrounded around fun. So our last event was a Valentine's Day event in February, and we made bath bombs. And we had wine and we had charcuterie, and we just kikied and kicked it. But offline, I always do a call to action. So I'm in the legal community in Indianapolis. That's my bucket. If you need to know anything about the legal community or the law schools, education, stuff like that, that's where you can come and ask me, and I can give information about that. So our whole board is open to those same conversations. So I know you're going to ask about this later, but we connect on LinkedIn and our social platforms. So at our events, sometimes a mom is like, oh, my kid, wants to go to law school, or my kid wants to do this. And we connect those people offline. So even though our event is focused on fun, we're doing meaningful work behind the scenes. Our next event in spring is back at Breathe Indy. It's a woman-owned local yoga studio, and we did an event there last December. Now we're doing one in the spring. Takes you through beginner yoga. I was scared because it was my first time doing yoga, but it's the instructors are phenomenal. And then yoga plus a sound bath. So we like to connect with local small businesses, sometimes women owned, sometimes not, but just local businesses. We also, Indianapolis is no Houston or Chicago, but we spread across, some having downtown because you get off of work at 5 and you can stay downtown, or Carmel, because Carmel has a bunch of great places on the north side. We haven't really done the south side of Indy yet, but that's kind of where we stay. So you at least drive 30, 40 minutes to our events. But we do a pulse check after every event to make sure, hey, are we still, doing stuff you like, and we ask our membership, if you have any ideas, if you have any small businesses that you want to support, let us know, because we're always planning. We're always looking for new places to support, and just having that communication with our membership. I think that's why Indy's been able to be successful post-COVID, and rev up and get the ball rolling again.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Bree.
Yeah.
Lisa, what have you got going on in Michigan, and what are some things that you have done so far that have been successful?
Well, since we're a new chapter, we decided kind of take the temperature of what was going on around us, and we did a brainstorming session last summer and prioritized all the different areas that we thought we would be interested in supporting based on the 3 pillars. And we came up with the theme of wellness and mental health. And with that, we decided to do a combination of in-person and online. Our first event was last October. We did the breast cancer walk out in Ann Arbor. Our second event was a book review called Pete's Notes, and it was called Overwhelmed, and it was specifically targeting women and why we're overwhelmed and what we can do to try and alleviate that and help make our life a little easier. And then with that, our February event was calligraphy. We had 16 attending, and that was our fun event, and it was really great. Suki was wonderful walking us through how to do calligraphy and challenging us. And she'll be coming back again this fall. It's a relationship that we've developed that will continue. And then our event last night was Declutter Your Mind with Ashley, which was really wonderful. She introduced us into the less concept. And it was really kind of interesting being able to take away some bite-sized pieces that you can actually apply to your life. So she will be coming back. She's part of our webinar series. So she's got like 2 or 3 more webinars planned with us coming up this next fiscal year. So, and we just continually send our surveys out to the audience saying, hey, what did you like? What was good? You know, what else would you like to see us doing for the club? And at the end of this month on the 27th, we're going to be doing another brainstorming session to add to the already 80 items we have on our list that we can prioritize. So we'll see what comes out of that brainstorming. But our plan for this coming year is try and do something every month, every other month, but it would be online or in person in the different areas. We have a lady that we've connected with in Toledo, who's going to be our Toledo advisor. We've been talking to a lady in Detroit, trying to see what we're going to be able to do with her. And that may be a workshop on like meditation and breath work. So we're kind of moving forward into the different regions. So if you know anyone who's like in Flint or Lansing, please share. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. All right, Sharon, what is going on in the DC area, and what are some things that you've done in the past that have been successful?
So, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be supporting the Boilers Go to Washington. That's 20 students coming here on a 2-week internship with C-SPAN. And a lot of them are liberal arts majors, but there's a sprinkle of other flavors there. But again, we will support their community service activity and a luncheon so that they can meet the area alumni that turn out. Also, I'm just in the throes of just trying to recruit more active women to be a part of our chapter so that we can put on those events and put together a events calendar. I must admit, I have joined Lisa's meeting. That was a lot of fun. And I do tend to go to other people's meetings to see what they're doing, to get ideas and get to know build networks. So other than that, like I said, this is our 2nd year. We will continue to do that as one of our premier events, but to stay connected, I have, in January, I had an afternoon tea with a few ladies. So I have at least 3 dedicated members right now, but I might do a few of those again during the year so we can bring more women into the fold. So that's about it.
Fantastic. And Sharon, could you share a little bit, just a little, whatever you're willing to share, about why you chose to go on our very first Purdue Women's Network trip in Italy last August?
Well, it was your inaugural trip. And when I saw it announced, I got so excited. I always wanted to go to Italy, had never been there. And I reached out to my roommates because I still stay in touch with them. And 2 out of 3 said yes. So we decided to go together. We've known each other since the fall of 1984. And to go on a trip like that, that was just a trip of a lifetime with your very best friends. So had a great time.
Thanks for sharing. And I had a great time with you too, Sharon. That was so fun.
Yes.
Miranda, tell us a little bit about what's going on in the Houston area, maybe some things that you've got coming up and some things that you've done in the past that have been successful.
So the Houston alumni chapter, like we have a all new leadership panel. So we're kind of like rebooting following some changes in leadership. And so what we're really hoping to do is do some events, hopefully, like I'll say probably in May before everyone goes off on their own holiday, but yet current Purdue students come back, is to do an event with high school seniors that have accepted, and then bring together the current students before they head off to their summer jobs and unite the alumni. So being in Houston, I'm thinking it might be like a Cinco de Mayo theme. So someone mentioned the Kentucky Derby theme. Houston be more of Cinco de Mayo. So in Houston, we do everything around food. There's so much to eat here. So historically, what we've been able to do is really try to tap into the restaurants. We have a Purdue alumni that we know has a chain of restaurants here that we try to tap into his restaurant, and we've had like the brunch events and some watch parties. But we're looking to try to do a reboot really for the overall alumni, but I'll be targeting more for women, and then with the intention to try to reach to the various areas, suburbs, and food will likely be involved. But I love some of these ideas, especially the Kentucky Derby, but I'll go with the Cinco de Mayo. Give me a margarita and some chips and queso, that'd be great. So.
Well, I know where I'm going next. I'm going to head to Houston because if it's got to be centered around food, that's what I want to see too. So that
Yeah,
sounds
we got
delicious. So the next question that I want to ask, and I'll share too. So Stefan, if you could give me access to share my screen while I'm talking too, that'll be great. I want to share with all of you how you can find out about these events, both from Purdue for Life and then also what we're doing on social media within each of these chapters to help share what is going on. So one of the things that I wanted to share is how to get to some of the things that we are doing with Purdue for Life. So I'm going to share my screen here. If you go to our Purdue for Life website, we've just had a redesign. So if you haven't seen this, now you're seeing it. Basically, everything is organized into stay connected, get involved, and give back. But we do want to make it easy for people to find our events. So when you click on events, it goes right to our events page. And this is really special because you can immediately click on Affinity Networks over here under Association and find what is happening for all of our Affinity Networks, which our Purdue Women's Network is one of our strongest and one of our largest Affinity Networks because we have these 7 chapters. So if you scroll through here, you can see tonight's event right here. Yesterday, we saw the event that Lisa was doing. It was up in today's events. But if you scroll through, you can see some of the things that are happening with all of the chapters. So here you see next month's April's Cocktails and Conversation, that is April 9th. And then you also see what Alinea mentioned on April 27th, the Purdue Women's Network of Chicago Men Tea that she mentioned. And then you'll also go into the May Cocktails and Conversation. So anytime there is an event that is added, you're going to see it under that events tab for Purdue for Life, and then you can search through that. Now, there are many other events that you can find beyond Purdue Women's Network when you click on that event page, but that's how you can get there straight from the Purdue for Life website. So in addition to that, I'll stop sharing now. You can find out more about what is happening with each of the chapters through their social media. We've got Purdue Ties. If you don't have a Purdue Ties account, please go to PurdueTies.com and set up that account. It is a great way to interact with alumni. We have almost 50,000 users on that right now. I think we're approaching our 50,000 users. We are trying to get people connected. It is just a Purdue network, and you can have communities on Purdue Ties. So that's a great place to see what's going on across chapters. But then we also encourage all of our chapter leaders to have other forms of social media, because we know they're always changing, and we know that people tend to be on Insta for a while, and then they'll be on maybe Twitter or not Twitter, depending on if it's changed, and then also various other networks like Facebook. And so I want each of you to share what is the best way for us to learn about what's going on with your chapter. We'll start with Alinea.
Can you repeat that? Sorry, my audio is going in and out. I
Oh,
think
sure. Yeah, just how's the best way to find out about the events that are going on for your chapter?
perfect. I am going to post here some of the links to either Sugar's or mine LinkedIn. If you guys want to connect with us, we also have a Purdue Women's Network chapter in LinkedIn. So here are some of the links on how to get connected with us. Just reach out, even if you have questions or exploring, we're a very open group. So, either Sugar or I will connect you with the rest of the chapter.
Perfect. Thank you. Bree, what's the best way to find out about Indianapolis events?
We have a LinkedIn page, and I'll post it too, and then our email address. So we had it when we originally started. So it's ipcw@indy@gmail.com, and I'll put it in there because it's in and out, you know what I mean. So email, and then LinkedIn, and then sometimes randomly Purdue for Life, I think, sends out alerts or invites or notices. So if you're not signed up, get signed up for those events through the Affinity Networks, and then you'll know.
Fantastic. And that's a great segue to Bree, to give me a little plug for Purdue Connect. So Purdue Connect, different from Purdue Ties. I know we got a lot of things to stay connected, but Purdue Connect is actually where you can tell the Purdue for Life Foundation what you want to hear from, what you want to get updates on, and what you don't want to get updates on. So every single person has an account. And if you go to Purdue Connect, then you can tell us, hey, do you want to hear about the networks? Do you not want to hear about other networks? Do you want to hear about your college? Do you not want to hear about a different college? You can completely set your preferences. And that's something that we've been working on, so that you're not getting a ton of emails from us, but you're getting the emails that matter most to you. So that's a great thing to remind too. I'll share my screen on that in just a few minutes, but let's jump over to Lisa. What is the best way to hear about events in Michigan?
We do a newsletter, and the beginning of April, we'll be sending out information for our next newsletter, which will give us an overview of what we're planning for our fiscal year 24-25. So that is one way. We have our Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. We also are on Purdue Ties. And like Jillian was saying, please get on Purdue Connect and sign up. Sharon, an excellent way to find out what other people are doing is to sign up for everybody's newsletter. So I get Mid-Michigan, I get Southwest Michigan, I've got all the Purdue Women's Network. So I just kind of try and figure out what everyone's doing. And also I go on to Blackthorn constantly, trying to figure out what the events are, local club versus our affinity networks.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa. And for those of you who don't know, Blackthorn is what we use internally. So you might not see that on the outward facing side, but our volunteers know Blackthorn really well, because it is the way that we get your events published on the Purdue for Life website. So thanks, Lisa. Sharon, what's the best way for us to find out about what's happening in DC?
Well, I am not on social media, but right now, my email is the best way. I just put it in the chat, and I will be building a community in Purdue Ties. I am already on there, but I will build a community. I'm learning tonight about a lot of these opportunities for me to help grow our chapter. And I will definitely sign up for newsletters, and I would like to start or publish one for us. So I'll be busy pretty in the next couple months getting off the ground because I'm very interested in growing this, especially for the new alumni, because I know there are a lot coming to the area. So
Wonderful. Thanks, Sharon. And Miranda, what's the best way for us to find out about Houston events?
So I just posted on here the our Facebook alumni group. So that'd be great to utilize that.
Fantastic. So I'm going to share again so that you can see what we're talking about with Purdue Connect. So I'm going to go back up to our homepage. So hopefully you can see the homepage of Purdue for Life Foundation. There's two ways that you can get to Purdue Connect to tell us about those preferences of the news that you want to hear of what's coming out of Purdue. One way is to log in right here. Just hit log in and it will take you to Purdue Connect. So it's connect.purdue.edu. And you can log in. So we'll go ahead and I'll show you my login, which I have saved. You'll create your login if you haven't done so. Super simple to do. And when you log in, you can see all the information about different ways that you're connecting in with Purdue. So it welcomes you here. But the thing that I want to show you is our communication preferences. So if you click on that, you can see all of the different communications that we send out, starting with Purdue for Life Foundation and going all the way through the different colleges that we have. And if you click on Purdue for Life Foundation, the first thing right there is Affinity Networks. So you click on Affinity Networks, and then you can see all of the different communications that come from this. So obviously we want you to sign into Purdue Women's Network Communications. You can see I'm actually opted into all of them, which is wonderful fun. So I can see what's happening across all of our networks. But again, this is a great way to share what you're interested in hearing about and tell us what you're not interested in hearing about so that we give you pertinent information and we're not giving you so many emails that's overwhelming. But you can scroll through here and see there's a lot of news coming out of Purdue. So if you haven't had a chance to update those communication preferences, I would definitely encourage you to do so using our Purdue Connect. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And I want to open it up for some questions. So Stephanie, I know you've been helping us monitor what questions are in the chat. So tell us what you're seeing, and then we'll kind of throw it out to any of the chapter leaders.
Okay, so for right now, we don't have any questions. We've just been putting in the chat all the ways you can connect. So if you want to start adding some questions in, I can read them off.
Okay. While we wait for some of those, I'll answer a question that I think we're going to get. How do I get involved? How might I start a chapter in my own area? Well, as you've heard from each of these women, really passion and interest in volunteering has got to be where it starts. If you and some other Purdue women, again, alumni, friend, or fan, are interested in getting a chapter started in your area, we would love to have that conversation with you. One of the first things that we would do is we would start looking at the number of alums that live in your area. We've got some fantastic heat maps now that help show us the number of alumni in the area. And we also can sort that about the number of women alum living in the area. A little bit more difficult for friends and fans, but if they've already created or engaged with Purdue in some way, we're able to add that information in. So we can tell you what the population looks like. Then we would start thinking about what are some of the ways that you would want to engage. So connecting those women to women, alumni and friends, and then connecting them back to the university. What are some of the ideas that you have to do that engagement work? What are some ideas that you might have around mentoring? And then what are ideas that you would have around helping to promote our philanthropic efforts with endowing those scholarships in each of our colleges? So we would talk through that. And then we would want to find out, do you have other volunteers that are willing to come alongside you? Because obviously this work is too much for one person to handle. So we want to make sure that we're spreading that out. And if you have a group of dedicated volunteers and you've got those ideas, we're going to help you to think about how to set that chapter up. We do have some limited funds that are available to help with these chapters, so that you can apply for funds to help get some of these events started and off the ground. So we do want to make sure that we get that information to you. We provide comprehensive training. Stephanie and Maria walk our volunteers through how to fill out the Blackthorn that we're talking about, ways to get those events into our system, and then how do we publicize these events out on our events page, and how do we make sure that women in your area are getting those emails to hear about other things that are happening with Purdue Women's Network. So a lot of support comes from our office if you're interested in doing that. That's a little bit about, in a nutshell, what this takes to get that off the ground. The other thing that I would say is that many of these chapters, and I know Tippecanoe is one of them, are looking for other volunteer leaders. So not necessarily doing the lift to start a brand new chapter, but many of these chapters are looking for women to come in. There's many roles that you can fulfill on these. We are looking for people to help with events. We're helping with communications, to help monitor those social media channels, to create a variety of different events that will attract different ages and stages of women in their life. We need all of that. So if you're thinking about plugging into a local chapter, please reach out and we can try to put you in contact with some of the other chapter leaders to get involved in that way too. I'm going to pause for a moment and see if we've had some questions come in. I can just keep talking, Stephanie.
I know I'm just going to cut you off. So the first question that we had, Bree went ahead and answered in the chat, but I'm going to go ahead and ask, how big is the Indy area group? And I'll let Bree go ahead and answer that real quick before I go to the next question.
So we have 5 on our board, and then we have like 50 plus members. We cap most of the events that we have just because of, venue size, price, and we run all the numbers and we cap them. But the biggest event that we had was at Cooper's Hawk up in, I think it was Fishers or Carmel, and that was like a little over 50 people. So sometimes we see the same group of ladies, sometimes we see a lot of different people. So yeah, if you're interested in getting on the board, let me know. You can reach out or be a general member too. That's also great. Yeah.
And that's a good question too about membership. So do you have to be a member of the Purdue Women's Network? No. What we do ask is that you're a member of the Purdue Alumni Association, because the funds that come from being a member of the Alumni Association go to support these chapters and the engagement efforts that we do. So the funds that I talked about that we give out to each of the chapters, those come directly from membership in the Purdue Alumni Association. But you can absolutely come and not be a member, and then we'll encourage you to become a member to help support some of those events. But yes, all are welcome in any of the events that we put on.
Okay, so Diane had a question of, have you found good, innovative ways or events to tie in with local Purdue alumni clubs or other than game watches?
Great question. Alenia, you mentioned tying into a couple of the chapters because you have 2 very active alumni clubs in the Chicago area. Can you talk to this?
Yes, we support recently, actually 2 weeks ago, we had a Chicago Dress for Success. And for volume, we did tie in with the Game Watch, but we wanted to have a philanthropy event with an organization that supported women. We've also partnered for the Purdue Send Off for those accepted students. It's been a lot of fun on occasions to partner with one of the other chapters. But we have a very collaborative relationship in general where we try to support each other's events. And that's kind of how people have either found about our Purdue Women's Network chapter, or people have found out, oh, there's a club in the suburbs. Again, we try to collaborate as, whenever we can, or support each other's events.
Thanks so much, ladies. It's been a pleasure hearing from each of you tonight, and it's been a pleasure seeing all of your faces on here. Thank you for what you do. We cannot do this work without our volunteers. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for connecting alumni to each other and back to our great university within Purdue Women's Network. Thank you.